Hey there, SKs! Happy Monday! Welcome to your first math lesson of the week. Today, we're going to be looking at the difference between length and height. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start off with a little math review. Today, we're going to go to our online 100 square, and we are going to be counting not by ones, but by twos. So normally, when we go up, every time we go to a new number, we're jumping by one, right? So from 1 to 2, it's one jump. From 2 to 3, it's another jump, and another jump, jump, jump. But we're just jumping one at a time. Today, we're going to be going up by 2 jumps. Watch how I do it. So I'm starting at 1, then 1 jump, 2 jumps, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. Did you see how I did that? Every time I painted a new number, it was a 2 jump process instead of just 1. So I'm gonna clear that. And this time we're gonna try counting together, okay? So as I paint the squares, I want you guys to be counting at home going up by 2s. Let's choose a different color, blue. We're gonna start at 1. Ready, set, go. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, 29, 31, 33, 35, 37, 39, 41, 43, 45, 47, 49, 51. We'll stop there for today. If you look at our 100 square, what do you notice? Do you see a pattern going on with the colors blue and white? That's right. It seems like we have a blue line going down here, then a white line, then a blue line, white line, so on and so forth. And that's because we skipped every 2 instead of 1. So instead of having 1, 2, 3 colored, we skipped the one in the middle, creating the blue and white pattern. Now, we don't only know how to count by 1s or 2s, we can count by any number. I could count by 6 or 5. Let me show you one more example. I'm going to show you how we can count by 5. So the same way when we were counting by 2, we were taking 2 bunny jumps forwards. We're going to be taking 5 bunny jumps or hops forward to count by 5. So starting with 1. Ready? Watch me jump 5 forward. And remember, you never count the square you're on as a jump. That'd be like a bunny jumping in place. Boing. We only count when the bunny moves forward. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 hop, 2, 3, 4, 5 hops. 1 hop, 2 hop, 3 hop, 4 hop, 5 hops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll stop there. Can you see this pattern? You see how there's a straight line going down here, and then on each row we skipped the same amount. We skipped 5 every time, and so we have another orange line going down here. Okay, kindergarten, that was our review for today. This week, we'll be focusing our reviews on skipping numbers by 2s, 3s, and 4s. Now, let's get to our lesson of the day. Okay, kindergarten. So last Friday, we started talking about measurement and I introduced you to the 4 tools that you'll need to use this unit. The first one was the ruler. The ruler measures how long something is. The second tool we were introduced to was the weight scale. That's when you can measure how heavy something is. The third tool we were introduced to was the balance scale, which is kind of like a weight scale, except it compares which of the 2 things is heavier or lighter. And the fourth thing, the thermometer, which checks how hot something is or how cold something is. It checks the temperature. So today we're going to be focusing a little bit more on length, how long things are, and we're also going to be talking about height. Now, what is the difference between length and height? Let's see. If you were talking about a football field and you were trying to tell someone how big your football field was, would you tell that person, oh wow, the football school at my field is really, really tall? No, that sounds funny. You would say it's really, really long. So things that have nothing to do with how tall they are, it usually deals with the word length. Let me rephrase that. When you use the word height, you're measuring something that starts from the ground and goes up. So a few examples of that are people. A person would want to measure how high they are, how tall they are, by standing on the ground and going up next to a wall with a ruler and measuring their height. If someone has a long height, a big height, they would say that they're tall. If someone has a smaller height, that person would be short. Let's write that word down, short. What are some other things that we measure from the ground up? Can you think of some? I just thought of the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty starts on the ground and goes upwards, just like buildings. So statues and monuments and buildings are all things that would be measured using the word height. Here's a building. You wouldn't really hear someone say, hey, how long is that building? They would ask, how tall is that building? So that's what you need to remember for height. Usually, height has to do with things that start at the ground and work upwards. And you can measure height by using things like rulers. Now, length is pretty much anything else. So I would measure the length of this marker with a ruler. I would measure the length of a juice box, the length of a field, all by types of rulers. So here, let me draw a pool. A pool is something that you would want to measure. Here, does this look like a pool? That's a ladder. Okay, and that's water. A pool is something you would measure to figure out how long it was. Another thing you could measure is a book. You would measure how long a book is. Okay? Now, technically, you could ask someone, how tall is the book? Because you could stand that book on the ground and measure its height going upwards. But the typical word we're going to try to use for objects is length. Okay? Unless we're trying to measure a person or a building going up, we're going to stick to the word length. Okay. Now, one more thing that's super duper important before we start learning about length and height is how to actually measure things. Now, you may have used a ruler before, but before you can actually use a ruler, you need to know something very important, which is about how to set up your ruler. So, let's just say I have 2 lines. Here's my first line, and here's my second line. Now, if I didn't have a ruler and I had to just look at these 2 objects and figure out which one was longer, it's a little bit tricky to find out because of 2 reasons. First of all, these 2 lines are not side by side. So it's really hard for my eyes to figure out which one's longer. So that's the first thing that needs to happen. When you're measuring something using your eyes or with a ruler, you have to make sure that your ruler is right side by side to the object. And since I'm using my eyes now, it would help me a lot if these lines were side by side. So I'm going to erase this line, and now I'm going to draw it side by side. Okay. Now they're side by side, but I still am having some difficulty telling which one is longer. And that's because these lines are not starting at the same place. The second thing that has to happen when you're measuring something, either with your eyes or by using a ruler, is your objects have to be end to end. So I'll call this my end, which means I have to bring this line down here. So let me move the line a bit further down. Oopsies, that's a squiggly line. Sorry, guys. That was very squiggly. Okay, now we're talking. Let's see if my 2 things are in order already so that I can measure. Are my lines side by side? They're parallel. Parallel means that 2 objects are directly side to side without an angle. So yes, they are side by side. And are they each starting at the same end point? Yes, they are. That way, I can quickly tell that this line is shorter and this line is longer. Maybe you remember, or maybe you need a reminder, but last year we made up a little dance to remember to put things side to side, end to end when we're measuring, and it goes like this. Side to side, end to end. Side to side, end to end. See how my elbows are starting at the same place? It's like their ends are starting at the same line. And if you look at my arms, they're perfectly straight. They're not off to the side like this. They are side to side, and my elbows are end to end. Is this end to end? We're starting at a different point. Is this side to side? So make sure, side to side, end to end. And with that, we're ready to dive into our worksheet. Let's see what we have for today. Okay, so today is all about training our eyes to see which object is longer or taller and shorter. Here's guided problem number 1, which I'll be doing for you so you can see how it works. Lisa's not sure if she's taller or shorter than Andy. Fill in the bubble under the scholar that is shorter. Now, first things first, are these 2 children side to side? Yes, they are. Are these 2 children end to end? Are their feet starting at the same point? Yes, they are. Now I'm ready to use my eyes to see which one looks taller to me. Which one do you think looks taller? If you think that this guy looks taller, I agree with you. I agree. We need to train our eyes to be able to look at 2 objects and tell our brains quickly which one is taller and shorter. Now, here's another question. If the girl was standing on a bench, okay, this is my girl, and the boy was standing on the ground, there we go. Who is taller? I'll repeat the question. If this little girl is standing on a bench and this boy is standing on the ground, who's taller? What do you think? The girl may look taller, but it's hard to tell because these two people are not end to end. They certainly are side by side, but their ends are starting at different points. His end is here. That's the point he's starting at, and hers is all the way up here. So it's really tricky, if not impossible, to compare who's taller because it's not fair that they're starting at different points. This girl would have to go down, she'd have to jump down the floor, woo, and we would have to measure them side to side, end to end. That way we can start to see who looks taller, right? Now, when two things are really, really close to being the same height or length, that's when we need to use our rulers. Our eyes are really good at telling us what's taller when there's a really big difference, but when things look close in size, that's when we need to use our measuring tools. Let's move on to guided problem number 2. Billy has a pencil and a blue crayon inside his desk. Circle the one that is shorter. So this is another problem that's asking us to use our eyes to discriminate between the lengths and heights. So if we look at these two crayons, I need you to trust your eyes to tell you which one is shorter. If you are thinking that the shorter of the two is the crayon, you are correct. And I hope that before you allowed yourself to make that decision, you made sure, are these two objects side by side? Yep, there seems to be an equal space between them. And are they starting at the same edge? The same end? Yes, they are. So this was a fair measurement. This one is shorter. Great. Now for today, you will be testing your measurement skills by answering the following questions. So remember, for today's lesson, you don't need any kind of measurement tools, no rulers. You're just going to be training your eyes to make sure that they know how to tell when things are shorter or longer. And remember, make sure that when you are looking, you make sure that the two objects you're comparing are side to side, end to end. For example, they're asking you to find out which train is longer. One thing you could do is draw a line on both of their ends. Oopsies, that's not a very good line. There we go. You can draw a line to make sure they're starting at that same start line, to make sure they're starting at the same end. So in this case, they are, even though my line is very squiggly, and they are side to side. Once you have finished the activity sheets for today, there is one page of math review just to keep you sharp for your addition and subtraction. Okay, seniors, that's enough for Miss I. Now it's all up to you to finish your math for the day. Have a great day and see you in a bit.